Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are working on Richard III, and today we get to hear from Tyrrel in what the folio calls Act 4, Scene 2, what other versions call Act 4, Scene 3. I don't know if he was getting lazy in naming his scenes at this point in time or what, and he just didn't want to do that. He would just have somebody leave and come back, but then like all this stuff was different and it felt like time passed. So then when scholars looked at it later, they're like, this has to be a different scene, because otherwise how would people know that like time has passed between, that second and this second? So anyway, Act 4, Scene 2, as it exists in the folio, we have Richard sitting on the throne. Buckingham walks him up onto the throne. Richard is like, can you please go kill Prince Edward and Prince Richard? And Buckingham is like, ooh, I feel a little ooky about that. Let me go think about it for a minute. And Richard is like, I can't trust him anymore. I need somebody that's going to kill these kids for me. So a page brings him in Tyrrel. Richard also finds out that that Dorset has gone to join Richmond. Richmond being probably his number one threat to the throne now, his actual threat, because Richmond would have been king if the Lancasters had come out on top in the War of the Roses at this point, or were on top at this point. So that's a little bit of a blow to him. And so he finds this out. He sends Tyrrel to kill the kids, and then Buckingham comes back in and is like, you promised me that I would become like the Earl of Hereford if I helped you with all of this stuff. And it's funny because there's several people in the room at this point, but it's like Richard and Buckingham are having two separate conversations at the same time. It's one of those sorts of scenes. And Richard just keeps saying, he's like, I have to deal with Richmond, and Dorset has gone with Richmond, and Stanley, you need to deal with this, and you need to get your wife to write some letters and all this sort of thing. And meanwhile, Buckingham was over here saying, you promised me an earldom. You promised me an earldom, until finally Richard is like, you are not getting your earldom. Shut your face. And Buckingham is like, that wasn't the deal. And Richard is like, it is now. And he leaves. And Buckingham is like, oh, this isn't good. I don't want to end up like Hastings. And he runs away. In other versions of the play, that's the end of Act 4, Scene 2. Act 4, Scene 3, as it exists in other versions, and where we're going to start today, starts with Tyrrel coming onto the stage by himself, because after Buckingham runs away, then the stage could theoretically be empty for a second. Tyrrel comes in by himself and says, the tyrannous and bloody act is done, the most arch deed of piteous massacre that ever yet this land was guilty of. Dighton and Forrest, who I did suborn to do this piece of ruthful butchery, albeit they were fleshed villains, bloody dogs, melted with tenderness and mild compassion, wept like to children in their death's sad story. Oh, thus, quoth Dighton, lay the gentle babes, thus and thus, quoth Forrest, girdling one another with their alabaster innocent arms. Their lips were 4 red roses on a stalk, and in their summer beauty kissed each other. A book of prayers on their pillow lay, which one, quoth Forrest, almost changed my mind. But oh, the devil. There the villain stopped, when Dighton thus told on, we smothered the most replenished sweet work of nature, that from the prime creation ere she framed, hence both are gone with conscience and remorse. They could not speak, and so I left them both to bear this tidings to the bloody king. And here he comes. All health, my sovereign lord. So, Tyrrel didn't actually do the murdering himself. He got these 2 other guys, Dighton and Forrest, to go do it, who are supposedly like really tough murderous type guys, but they went in to kill these 2 boys and felt really bad about it. Like killing these children bothered them. They were like these 2 very young boys in the prime of their youth, and they were happy at one point in their lives, and then they were scared, and they hugged each other, and they had a book of prayers on their beds, and we almost changed our minds, because these boys shouldn't have had to die. So Tyrrel is feeling a little bit bad about that too, because Dighton and Forrest, like these 2 super tough, super hard guys, were softened by this murder that they just committed. That's a good thing. I don't know. They still did it, is the point. But then Richard comes in and he's like, is it done? And Tyrrel's like, yeah, it's done. He's like, and you saw them get buried? And he's like, they're buried. I'm not exactly sure where. And Richard's like, great. Okay. So they're taken care of. Clarence's son is hidden away somewhere where nobody's going to find him. Clarence's daughter has been married off to some yokel who that's not going to be a problem anymore. And before Richmond can get to her, I'm going to marry Edward's daughter, whose name is Elizabeth, because they were really quick with names back in the day. He's like, I'll marry her, and then everything's going to be good. But then he finds out that not only has Dorset gone to Richmond, but Buckingham is heading that way too, and a few other people. And he's like, oh, this is not good. But he resolves himself that he will fight against those that are threatening his throne. Because at this point, he's killed so many people. Like, what's a few more? So yeah, by the end of Act 4, Scene 3, as it exists in many other versions, or yeah, this is where Act 4, Scene 2 also ends. But Richard is now aware of the fact, oh, and also Lady Anne is dead at this point. We don't know exactly when she died or how she died. He had spread rumors that she was sick, but he's like, these two are dead and those two are taken care of and I'm going to marry her and Anne is dead, so all of this is like groovy. But then he finds out that a rebellion is starting to build against him. Oh, and he harkens back to a prophecy or a dream that he had that said that Richmond would be king at some point. And he's like, yeah, that's not going to happen. But I don't know, there's been a lot of prophecies in this play and a lot of dreams that are coming true and that sort of thing. So Richard has kind of reached the height of where he's going to go. So now we got to see how he falls or if he's able to stay up there. I don't know. What do you think? Do you know your British history? Do you know this sort of stuff? Because then you know the answer to these questions. Anyway, I will see you tomorrow as we dig in further and see how long Richard is able to stay on the throne. Mwah.